In this video, I'm going to show you the most commonly asked Royal Caribbean interview questions and help you plan strong, confident answers that will maximize your chance of getting the job. So let's look at how do you actually pass a Royal Caribbean interview. And the first thing you have to get right is know that this is a job and not a holiday. The fastest way to annoy a Royal Caribbean interviewer and put them right off hiring you is to talk about loving traveling and looking forward to seeing the world. It is not a holiday. They are recruiting for a tough job and they want people that understand that. It's long hours and very hard work. The next thing is make sure you have taken time to properly study Royal Caribbean. They will ask about your knowledge of the cruise line, and if you don't have the knowledge, you're going to look really bad, and I'm going to help you by showing you the key facts that you need to take to your interview. The next thing is study the requirements for your role and show that you meet them. That is the whole point of this interview, is to show them that you're a great hire, so make sure you read the job description and tailor your answers to meet that. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. The next thing is learn the questions that Royal Caribbean ask most frequently, and I will show you what those questions are. But more importantly, prepare strong and confident answers to these. And by the end of this video, you will have a set of great answers to the most common questions that Royal Caribbean like to ask in their interviews. So let's start with an incredibly important one, which is what can you tell me about Royal Caribbean? And if you turn up to your interview without good knowledge of the company, it's going to go really badly. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you got the basic facts. And the good news for you is I will tell you the basic facts you need to take to your interview. The next thing is show off your preparations. Show that you've actually taken time to prepare. And by the end of this section, you will have lots of things that you can say that will show a lot of great preparation. And then you want to be really impressive. You want to drop in some facts that only people who have really taken a lot of time to prepare and take this interview very seriously would actually know. So let's look at how you answer this question. So the first thing you do is just say the obvious. It is an international cruise line. Very simple, but it gets to the heart of what the business is. You could say that they are the largest or the second largest cruise line. I recommend you check the current data. Are they the largest? Are they the second largest? They have a rivalry with Carnival, and sometimes they are the largest. Or if you measure it by passenger numbers or you measure it by market share, there's lots of different ways to work out the largest one. So I would make sure you know whether they are currently ranked as the largest or the second largest. They do carry millions and millions of guests. Royal Caribbean is absolutely enormous as a company and are very successful. The next thing you can say is that they've got diverse itineraries. So currently, Royal Caribbean is going to about 240 different destinations. That number changes all the time, but it's a good idea to realize that it's not just Caribbean. They offer itineraries across a large part of the world and visit hundreds and hundreds of destinations. They have enormous ships. Royal Caribbean is famous for having many of the largest ships in the entire world. They're much larger than a lot of other cruise lines, and that's really one of their specialities. But beyond that, they like to describe their ships as an architectural marvel. Their ships usually have very unique features. I would research the ship that you're likely to be posted on and understand what is unique, what is special about that ship, and maybe discuss that. They like to see themselves as innovative, and they have a lot of cruise line firsts to their name, and they're very proud of that. They are a family-friendly brand, so on Royal Caribbean ships, you will see a wide variety of ages from very young children to very old elderly people. You will see a wide range, and they try and cater for everyone. They have their own private islands. They have several of them. The most famous is Labadee, which is like a private resort that is owned and operated by the company. You'll also notice that currently all of the ships, the name ends with "of the seas." That's one way you can instantly spot a Royal Caribbean ship, and that's a good fact for your interview. You want to have the name of their largest ships, so maybe memorize the name of the top three. They're constantly building ships, and Royal Caribbean has a habit of building bigger and bigger and bigger ships. So that list changes all the time. So just memorize the three largest ships and have that ready for your interview. They were founded all the way back in 1968, and they were founded by a group of Norwegian shipping companies. And their first ship was called the MS Song of Norway, and that comes from their Norwegian shipping roots. The company is now part of the Royal Caribbean Group that owns a number of other cruise lines. For example, Celebrity Cruises is part of the Royal Caribbean Group, so it's a good idea to know what other brands is also owned by that group. You should also be aware of the fact that they're currently headquartered in Miami, Florida, and that's another good fact to say. Another great idea is to read the annual report of the company, because that will give you really fantastic insight into the company's strategy, what they're worried about, and what the focus of their business is. And by the end of reading through that, and I don't mean read it in full, I mean skip through and skim read it, you will get a really great impression of the company, and you can say in your interview that you took time to read their annual report. And they also sometimes put out presentations for investors that have really great descriptions of the business and really help you build your preparation even more. So feel free to write down lots of notes. I would have these facts ready, and if you talk about this in your interview, it's going to show that you've done the preparation and you know the key facts about the company. The next one you may be asked is, you see someone not following safety protocols, what do you do? And they don't just want a simple answer to this, they want to see that you've got the right values. Remember that they are going to be writing down notes in the interview very likely, and they don't want to hire someone that gets this question wrong, so you've got to get it right. So the first thing you do is you're very clear and you're very forceful and confident in your answers. You start by saying, safety is always my number one priority, and I take safety incredibly seriously. So you're very strong and very forceful on the fact that safety is important to you. But then you even extend on that. You say, as a crew member, I have a duty of care. Duty of care is a great phrase to use in the interview. And you've got that duty of care to all passengers and crew. So if you're a member of the crew on the ship, part of your responsibility is keeping everyone safe. And that is a very, very important part of your responsibility. Then you say, not following safety procedures can cause serious harm. People have been at sea for a very, very long time, and they have developed safety protocols with hundreds and hundreds of years of experience. They're there for a reason, and if you don't follow them, people can be hurt or even killed. It's not something that is, well, you sort of have to follow this, but if you don't, it doesn't really matter. No, it is absolutely essential, and you're going to be very clear in the interview that you will not compromise safety. Then you start answering the question. So you spent a lot of time talking about how important it is without even answering it, but that's what they want to hear. Now you answer the question and say, I would never ignore a safety issue. I would intervene to ensure everyone is safe. And then beyond that, you say, I would then promptly report the incident in line with Royal Caribbean policies. So you're going to follow the policies, you're never ignoring safety, and you care about it. And that's how you ace this question. The next one is, what is your greatest strength? And they'll also ask, what is your greatest weakness? So let's look at how you answer this question and what they actually want to hear to be a good strength. So I think about what strength are you going to pick, and I'll give you some inspiration about that. So a good answer is a notable strength. It shouldn't be something that's not that important. It should be something that is extremely important. Then you want to back it up with some evidence or examples. So think about times when you've used this strength, or if it's a strength that you could back up with a qualification or a certificate, that also makes your answer that bit stronger. It should be highly relevant to the job. So think about the job you've applied for and pick something that's important for that job. And then remember, the point of this is to prove that you are a great hire for them. The whole point of this is to say, I've got this strength, you should hire me because I'm so brilliant at this. Then what you need to think about is how you answer it. So you say, a key strength that I have developed is, say what the strength is. Previously, I've used this strength to link it to your previous experience, talk about how it's made you more successful, and then say, at Royal Caribbean, this strength will, and then explain to them how you're going to use this strength to be brilliant at your job. That's how you answer it. Some ideas of things that you might say is, if you've got extensive cruise ship experience, you know exactly what you're doing, you worked on cruise ships before, that's a great strength. That's going to help you be effective really quickly. If you've got excellent customer service skills and you've worked in lots of customer service roles and you're really great at dealing with customers and passengers, talk about that. You might have a strong work ethic, great attention to detail. You've got maybe lots of experience in the role that you're applying for, or you're really great at team working and you work really well in teams. That could be something you talk about. So think carefully about what your biggest strength is and use that 3 steps to successfully answer the question once you've thought of your strength. On the flip side, they may ask, what is your biggest weakness? And you can ruin the whole interview by picking the wrong weakness, and you can give a terrible answer to this. So we need to look at what the elements of a good answer are and how you actually answer it successfully, and I'll give you some inspiration about some weaknesses you might want to use. So a good answer, firstly, shows that you know your development priorities. Bad answers suggest that you don't really understand what you need to improve, and so how are you ever going to get better? Then you've got to make sure it's a genuine weakness. So something that you actually have as a weakness. It's not fake, it's not made up, and it's not a secret sort of strength, sort of weakness, or something that's actually a good thing that you try to pass off as something that's bad, which isn't really, because that will not be taken seriously. Then you want to work to overcome your weakness. You want to spend a lot of time talking about how you can improve rather than why it's going to be such a problem. And then it has to be a weakness that Royal Caribbean just don't care about. So don't pick something that actually matters. So bad answers would be something like, I'm just such a perfectionist and do everything perfectly. And because I have to be so perfect at everything, I maybe work a little bit slowly. Well, no, that's not really much of a weakness. Being a perfectionist is a bit of a brag, it's boastful, it's not really a massive weakness, so don't use that. On the flip side, you don't want to say anything that's actually important to your role. So, for example, saying, I suffer from constant, intense, and debilitating seasickness would not really be ideal for someone working on a cruise ship. So, think about if you were hiring someone and they said this was their weakness, would it stop you wanting to hire them? And if the answer is no, that's probably a good thing to use for a weakness. The way you answer is very simple. You say, a weakness I'm aware of is, say what your weakness is, and then don't talk very much about it. Don't go into detail about why your weakness is such a big problem, because you're just giving them reasons not to hire you. What you do instead is you say, as part of my development, I hope to, and suggest one or two things you could do to make your weakness go away over time. Now let's think about what your weaknesses might be. So, for example, if you have a job that doesn't involve very much writing, you could say spelling, or perhaps spelling complex words you struggle with, and you maybe write a little bit slower because you have to keep checking everything. Not a debilitating weakness and probably not even relevant to your job. If you only speak English, that is a weakness. You are working on a cruise ship, so there'll be lots and lots of other nationalities. So speaking more than one language would be a good thing. But perhaps a lot of people applying alongside you are only speaking English, and the majority of the guests perhaps may be American, or they may be from Europe, so there's probably high levels of English speakers, so it's not going to be a huge problem. But it is something you talk about, that you're not happy about the fact that you only speak English and you have began to learn a second language and you're really interested in doing that. If you're applying for something that's not involved in any management, you could talk about delegation and say before you move into management, you want to build your skills in delegation to be more effective at that. You're probably not going to be doing a lot of public speaking unless you have a role that involves public speaking. And you could say that that's something you want to develop, or you're not great at saying no, or your math skills aren't particularly brilliant. You're very reliant on a calculator. And if you're doing a job that doesn't involve very much math, it's absolutely fine. So you could use that. So think carefully about what weakness you're going to say in the interview. Think about how you could overcome it and develop. And that's how you have a successful answer to this. They often ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's not an easy question to just go and just make up a 5-year plan on the spot in 10 seconds, because you don't get much time to think in interviews. So be ready for this one. So have a rough 5-year plan. So let's look at what the elements of a good answer are and a bad answer, and what sort of things you might want to talk about. So make it credible. Don't talk about being the chief executive in 5 years as someone who's just starting out. That's not going to be very credible. You have to have something that is reasonable. LinkedIn is a very good place to look, so you can see people who joined 5 years ago, what have they managed to achieve? That helps you ensure that your 5-year plan is reasonable. Then you have to think about what they can offer and what they want. So they want someone that's going to get continuously better and is going to stay with the company. They also want to show some learning and improvements. You think about how you're going to get better. Some of the worst answers are where people talk about, I will be this in 5 years. I won't do anything to earn it, or I won't work hard to get there, or I'm not going to do anything to improve. I'm just going to be very important in 5 years magically. That doesn't go down very well. But then you have to also think about, how is Royal Caribbean part of the story? Because if you're applying to get a job there and you're talking about staying for 5 years, make them part of your 5-year plan. Then you look at a bad answer. So the worst answers are things that are silly or unreasonable, that are not going to take seriously. Things that are not related to the job. So if you talk about you want to buy a house in 5 years, or you plan to travel to all these places, that's not particularly relevant to the job. And it could perhaps put them off because they don't want to hear about that. They want to hear about how you're going to be great at your job. The worst thing that you can do is say something that's insulting to the panel. So people sometimes say in 5 years' time, I want to be where you're sitting and I want to be doing your job. And you might find out that that person has been with the company 28 years and it took them 22 years to get to their position of seniority. And you're saying in 5 years, I'm going to be where you are or above. That doesn't go down very well. And then anything that's not relevant to Royal Caribbean is not worth mentioning. The point of this is to help convince them that your 5 year plan aligns with what they would like to see. And then really the worst thing you can say is quitting Royal Caribbean. The time to talk about quitting a job and leaving a company is not the interview to get the job. So if you're planning on doing something completely different in 5 years, now is not the time to talk about it because one, you may find out that you really love working for the company and you stay there a very long time. And the other reason is if you talk about quitting the job before you've even got it, they're probably going to hire someone else. Then we need to think about what could be part of your 5 year plan. So the road to +1 is a good way to talk about it. So look at the job you're applying to. What is one level above that? And usually moving up one level in 5 years tends to be quite reasonable, but it's talking about the road to getting there. How are you going to earn these promotions? How are you going to get to a level where you're ready for that step up? That's what you want to talk about. You may talk about taking on additional responsibility. So that may not be an official promotion, but that you have an idea that in 5 years you want to take on more responsibility. You may be wanting to mentor new staff. So once you've built up 5 years of experience, you would really be enthusiastic and interested in supporting and developing new staff because that's something that may be a really big interest of yours. You may say that you're looking to take on more leadership, not necessarily saying, I want to do this specific job in 5 years, but within 5 years, you're looking to take on a job with a bit more leadership. Even if you're applying for a management job, you may say that in 5 years you want to be managing more or have more responsibility as a manager. You could say that you're looking to become a supervisor. That could be a goal. Another good thing to say is that within 5 years, you're going to be really focused on really embedding yourself as an integral team member, really proving that you're incredibly useful to the company, you're incredibly dependable, you're reliable, you're very professional, and you're brilliant at your job. And within 5 years, you'll be really, really well embedded in the company. You could also say that you're looking to be gaining additional qualifications. If you plan to do extra study, you could say what that is and link it back to working for the company. And you could also say being truly outstanding at my role. Say that you are very confident that you can do the job very well, you've got lots of great experience, and that in 5 years, you'll be even better, that you're constantly developing, you're constantly improving, and within 5 years, you will be really, really outstanding at that role. And that's a great thing to talk about if you're not looking at progressing. So feel free to take any of these ideas and start planning an answer. It would be a good idea before your interview to have a bullet pointed answer of where you want to be in 5 years and use this to help you. The next question is, how would you deal with a complaint from a very angry passenger? And unfortunately, sometimes things don't go right and you need to know how to deal with a complaint. And so the first thing you say is, I will always remain calm and I will be professional. That's very reassuring for them to hear. Then you say that you'll stop and listen carefully to understand what is the issue. Why is the passenger angry? What exactly is their complaint? When a passenger is angry and complaining about something, the first thing they want is someone to actually listen to them. Then when something has gone wrong, you say you would offer a sincere apology if something's gone wrong. Because that's the first step to resolving it, is to acknowledge that something hasn't went to plan. Then if the passenger is very aggressive or very, very difficult, you're going to de-escalate. You're not going to make the situation worse. You're going to remain calm at all times and get the situation under control. De-escalate is a good word to use in an interview. Then you will also reassure them that you will follow Royal Caribbean policies at all times. You're not going to make up your own policies. You're going to stick to the company policy. Then you could say that you might use the herd technique, and I'll show you what that is. And then the point of the whole answer, the goal is, and you end your answer with this, is that you will resolve the complaint to the customer satisfaction. That's your goal. You're going to take their complaint and you're going to resolve it. The herd technique is very simple. It's firstly, you hear what the customer's saying, you empathize with them, you apologize, you resolve, and then you diagnose. And by diagnose, I mean work out what went wrong and then communicate to your manager or other people in your team to try and think, how can we stop this happening again? You don't want to be getting the same complaint twice a day. You want to get the complaint once, fix it, and then never hear that complaint ever again. That's the goal. So you could talk about the herd technique, and that's a good way to answer this question. The next question, which is really important, is they could ask, why Royal Caribbean? Why do you want to work here? There's lots of cruise lines in the world. Why this one? Why do you want to work on a cruise ship? These are questions that come up quite often. So let's look at how you answer these. So I'm going to give you the basic elements of an answer and then lots of suggestions of reasons why you might want to work. And then if you pick 5 or 6 of these, you're going to have a strong answer. So the first thing you want to do is be very clear. Royal Caribbean is the brand for me. You can use that phrase to basically say, yes, there are lots of cruise brands in the world, but for me, Royal Caribbean is the one that I think is the best match. And you can explain later why that is. You want to be clear that it's a perfect match for your skills. So working on a cruise ship with Royal Caribbean matches your skills and interests. Then think about your previous experience. How does that link to working in this job? Think about opportunities. Is this somewhere where you could build a long-term career? Is this somewhere you think you could be very successful? And if so, you want to talk about that. And then you want to be enthusiastic. So when they ask this question, answer it with a great deal of enthusiasm because that lends credibility to your answer. Let's look at lots of things that you might want to say. So if you've been a customer and you've traveled on Royal Caribbean before, talk about a positive experience that you had, that you know that this is a great brand because you've been a customer and so you know the great experiences that they can provide. You could say that you enjoy being at sea, a simple thing that you could say, that you love interacting with passengers. And so, of course, working on a cruise ship would be brilliant for you, that you like to meet new people, that you feel that Royal Caribbean is a place where you can provide excellent service, that the company has a commitment to excellent service and you have a commitment to excellent service and you can actually do that here. That you think that it is really a perfect match for your skills and be very clear about that and explain why. You could also say that you've got lots of customer service experience and so working in this role on a cruise line really does match with your previous experience. That you want an active and a busy job, that you value teamwork and you enjoy working in a team, that you don't want to work on your own all the time, that you like working in large teams with other people, that you see a great long-term career potential, because that suggests that you're looking to stay somewhere and they won't have to keep recruiting for your role, that you're actually looking to develop and grow with the company. That Royal Caribbean is a huge organization, and because it's so large, you think that lots of opportunities are going to come up regularly and that you're looking forward to taking all the opportunities that are available to you. And then you could say, to round it off, that you see Royal Caribbean as a very innovative and a growing company, and you want to be part of their growth and help with the innovation. So there's lots of reasons. I'd pick 5 or 6 of these and then talk about that, be really enthusiastic about the brand and convince them that this is the right place for you. And that's how you succeed in this question. Before the interview ends, you need to have some questions ready. They will often ask, almost always, do you have any questions for us? And you need to have 2 or 3 questions. So let's look at some good questions you could ask and certain questions that you should never ask. So one question could be, what do you personally enjoy most about working at Royal Caribbean and what attracted you to join this cruise line? And you want to share in their enthusiasm and agree with them and add what they say to your answer of why you want to join this particular cruise line. You could ask, what training and progression opportunities could you see a high performer at Royal Caribbean getting in the next 3 to 5 years? You could say, what would you suggest that a new hire to Royal Caribbean do before starting to ensure they are well prepared for starting and make a commitment to doing anything that they suggest? You could ask, could you tell me the next steps in the Royal Caribbean hiring process? Because one, you probably want to know what happens next, and you'll find out if you get feedback, and then you'll know exactly when you expect to hear back from them. And then definitely make a point of thanking them for their time in the interview. Reiterate your interest, so be clear that I am very interested in this role and I look forward to hearing from you, and then end on a positive, because that positive ending is just a nice thing to finish with. Never ever ask about holidays, time off. Don't try and negotiate a higher salary before they've made any offers, and don't talk about moving to a different brand or moving to a different ship, or try and negotiate very silly things that is going to put them off hiring you. So please do post in the comments what questions they asked you, because that's really helpful to get a great list of those. I'd appreciate if you would like and subscribe. And finally, thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck.